It's a beautiful bacon day, Cookie Crusaders. Today I want to talk to you guys about player versus environment teams, and specifically just the core principles of what goes into making good teams. I'm not going to specifically say which cookies are the best to use because there's very many various teams that can be built together to get through specific waves, and that's something we can cover more in the future. But I really wanted to go in the core of what makes a good team and what can make a synergy to help you get through some of the impossible tasks that seem through the chapters, whether it be dark mode or even story mode if you're stuck in that. So the first thing is always try to have at least one defensive unit if you can. If your synergy is specifically built that you don't have a defensive unit because you're out damaging and out healing enemies, that's fine. But in most cases, if you're not at a high lab upgrade, if you're not at a point that you've got max cookies at levels 60s, high star promotions, great toppings, if you don't have all of that, you're going to really want team synergy more than everything else. And so having one tank gives you at least a higher chance of surviving and at least a higher chance of getting further in a wave. So we're going to filter down to the defenses and the charges. So these are all the current cookies that you can have for defensive and charging types. We'll start with the epics. When it comes to the front line, you always want to think first, what's their HP? Do they have a lot of defensive power? Do they just have a really high HP pool? Does their skill keep them alive? How does it synergize with the rest of the team? So if we were to pick a random one, let's say Strawberry Crepe, we know for a fact that her skill gives damage resistance buff to 2 cookies. Specifically, if we look at the info, it gives damage resistance to 2 targets with the lowest max HP. So in most cases, that's going to be your supports or your rears. In most cases. There are some exceptions for sure, but in most cases it will be the mids and rears. So if that's our tank, then we want to think of 2 DPS units, whether it be magic, ranged, ambush, bombers, and there are even some supports that technically count in that. So support is the most common one that you see, and Eclair is going to be one that a lot of people talk about for many reasons, but maybe you haven't unlocked Eclair. What would be your next best choice with Strawberry Crepe? Pomegranate would be a good option, or even Parfait. Pomegranate gives the attack bonuses, gives good healing. Parfait gives debuff resistance and defensive structures. So both of those are great supports. Now, of course, we would choose Eclair because the shields and the high damage are going to be really powerful altogether. So our second DPS unit that we're going to look at is we're going to either go with a ranged, a magic, or a bomber. So if you've unlocked any of the legendaries, of course, Seafarer is going to be an easy choice in the environmental mode because she'll do a lot of damage in a lot of scenarios against a lot of waves. As you get higher in the stories, this will be harder to choose generically, and you'll have to get more in depth with the team picking. But for now, for a general pick that we can choose that would synergize pretty well with this team would be Pumpkin Pie. And the reason is her fast cooldown would give the chance for a fast body to be in front, extra defensive power, extra attacking power, extra HP, more to help. Just more to help altogether. Then we're going to go ahead and filter off of that, and we're going to look at least one healer. You always want one healer, whether it be a support class or a healing class, because if you don't have any healing between your treasures and your cookies, you have to solely depend that their power is enough to take out the waves before they get taken out. And that is a risky play. In certain scenarios it can work, but in most cases you need at least some form of healing. I would say the easiest ones to probably get are going to be either Sparkling or Mint or Parfait. You'll probably get those 3 before most other cookies. If you get cotton, great choice. Cream puff, that's a guild thing, a little bit harder to get. Pure vanilla and ancient, yet again, a little bit harder to get. So in this synergy specifically, parfait and sparkling would probably be two good choices. And also herb. Herb would probably be the best one here, especially in the environment, because every time you come up against damage over time or poison enemies or things like that that send debuffs, herb's going to help you get rid of those debuffs. And those are going to be really helpful. In the later episodes, you might struggle with herb, so it might not be the best choice. But in the early modes, you might find some good help from herb and the different things that he does to help your team. So the last slot is flexible. So instead of picking a specific category, you really just want to think on your 5th cookie, who's going to blend the best with the remaining teammates. So in this situation, we have damage resistance from Strawberry Crepe. She should be able to handle on her own. We have good damage from Eclair and shields as well. We have another body and extra power from Pumpkin Pie. And we have healing from herb. So my personal recommendation is that why not go another healer if you have the option? Because if you can, you should usually be able to out-heal most of the damage that comes from the waves if you've got a strong enough team. And if you don't, then you should probably go with the DPS unit instead. That way you're getting as much damage as you can out possible. So, in this instance, with this specific team, I would probably pick Pomegranate, because they will attack buff each other. Pomegranate and herb dispelling all debuffs, so technically no debuffs as long as herb is keep activating. The shields from Eclair boosted from all the damage resistance for the lowest HP cookies, which if we look here, lowest HP is not going to be Eclair. It's going to be Pumpkin Pie. Actually, yeah, Pumpkin Pie and herb. So Pumpkin Pie and herb would be the ones getting the damage resistance buff from Strawberry Crepe. So our rears in this instance. And then our mids would be the ones getting the benefits of all the attack power, because Pomegranate would be buffing them. And then, of course, the Trial True's scroll for the first treasure. If you don't have scroll, though, another good one that you might have unlocked is going to be the Echo of the Hurricane Song. That's a good one if you don't have scroll at all. Like, if scroll's just not an option, Echo can be pretty good in the environment mode. It's a long cooldown, but it's not terrible. A better one, if you have it and at a decent point, is probably either the Scythe or the Lollipop. Scythe you really can only run if you have a critical focus team. Since we didn't pick Sparkling, we don't really have a critical focus team. So you'll probably actually benefit better from the Lollipop. The only thing I do have to say about the Scythe, though, is that passive treasures are always stronger because you don't have to wait for a cooldown. They're just running at all times. And so that's something to consider, too. And then, of course, the Watch and the Horn are a great pair. Having better cooldown and better defense for your entire cookies means just longer survivability, too, and faster school kickoffs so that their skills can happen more often. And those are just easy treasures to pick in most scenarios. I'd love to hear your comments and feedback. If you have a specific way you build teams, maybe you always build with 2 tanks. Maybe you always build with 3 healers. Maybe you do 4 DPS units and 1 healer. What is it you specifically like to run? I'd love to hear it. Either way, thank you so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful day.